The year was 1453, and the city of Constantinople was in turmoil. For centuries, the city had been the center of the Byzantine Empire, a powerful and prosperous state that had been a beacon of civilization in the Middle East. But now, the city was under siege from the Ottoman Turks, a ruthless enemy that was determined to take control of the city and the empire. The Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, had been killed in battle, leaving the empire without a leader. In the wake of his death, a power struggle had broken out among the various factions in the city. The most powerful of these was the Genoese, a powerful trading family that had been granted control of the city by the emperor. The Genoese had been quick to take advantage of the chaos, and had quickly established themselves as the de facto rulers of the city. But they were not the only ones vying for power. Another faction, led by a woman named Zoe Palaiologina, had emerged as a powerful force in the city. Zoe was the daughter of the last Byzantine emperor, and she had been determined to restore the glory of the empire. She had quickly gained the support of the people of Constantinople, and had become a symbol of hope for the city. With the support of the people, Zoe had declared herself the Empress of Byzantium, and had begun to rebuild the city. She had restored the city walls, and had begun to rebuild the economy. She had also begun to restore the faith of the people, and had brought back the old traditions of the Byzantine Empire. The people of Constantinople had been inspired by Zoe's leadership, and had rallied behind her. She had become a beloved figure in the city, and her reign had brought a new era of prosperity and peace to the city. The last Empress of Byzantium had been born, and the city of Constantinople had been saved. The city of Constantinople had been the capital of the Byzantine Empire for over 1,000 years. It was a city of great wealth and power, and its walls had kept out countless invaders. But in 1453, the Ottoman Turks laid siege to the city, and after a long and bloody battle, they finally breached the walls and took control of the city. The fall of Constantinople was a devastating blow to the Byzantine Empire. The city had been the heart of the empire, and its loss marked the end of the empire. The last Byzantine emperor, Constantine XI, was killed in the battle, and the city was renamed Istanbul. The fall of Constantinople also marked the end of the Byzantine Empire's influence in the Mediterranean. The Ottomans quickly took control of the region, and the Byzantine Empire was reduced to a shadow of its former self. The last Byzantine empress, Helena, was a young girl at the time of the fall of Constantinople. She had been living in the city with her family, and when the city fell, she was taken captive by the Ottomans. She was taken to Istanbul, where she was treated as a slave. Helena was eventually able to escape her captors and make her way back to Constantinople. She was determined to reclaim her city and restore the Byzantine Empire to its former glory. But her efforts were in vain, and the city remained under Ottoman control. Helena eventually settled in the city of Thessaloniki, where she lived out the rest of her life. She died in 1512, and her legacy was that of a brave and determined woman who refused to give up in the face of overwhelming odds. She was the last Empress of Byzantium, and her story is a reminder of the power and resilience of the human spirit. The siege of Constantinople began on April 6, 1453. The Ottoman forces, led by Sultan Mehmed II, had been preparing for this moment for months. The city was surrounded by a massive army of over 80,000 men, including Janissaries, Anatolian Turks, and Balkan mercenaries. The Ottoman forces had also brought with them a massive fleet of ships, which blocked the entrance to the Golden Horn. The defenders of Constantinople were outnumbered and outgunned. The city was defended by a small force of about 7,000 men, including the Emperor Constantine XI and his brother Thomas Palaiologos. The city was also defended by a number of walls and towers, but these were no match for the Ottoman forces. The siege lasted for 55 days. During this time, the Ottoman forces bombarded the city with cannons and arrows. The defenders of Constantinople fought bravely, but they were eventually overwhelmed. On May 29, 1453, the city fell to the Ottoman forces. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the beginning of the Ottoman Empire. The last Empress of Byzantium, Helena Palaiologina, was taken captive by the Ottoman forces and taken to Istanbul. She would never see her beloved city again. The Empress was ready to leave. She had made her decision and was determined to make it work. She had gathered her most loyal servants and had them prepare her for the journey. She had also gathered her most valuable possessions, including her jewels and her crown. The Empress and her entourage left the palace in the early morning hours. They traveled by horseback and carriage, heading south towards the coast. The journey was long and arduous, but the Empress was determined to make it. As they traveled, the Empress and her entourage encountered many obstacles. They were attacked by bandits and had to fight their way through hostile terrain. But the Empress was determined to make it to the coast. Finally, after days of travel, the Empress and her entourage reached the coast. They boarded a small boat and sailed away. The Empress was leaving her beloved city of Byzantium, never to return. The Empress and her entourage sailed for days, eventually reaching the shores of Italy. The Empress was welcomed by the people of Italy, and she was given a place to stay. The Empress spent the next few years in Italy, living in relative peace and comfort. She was able to keep her crown and jewels, and she was able to live a life of luxury. But the Empress never forgot her beloved city of Byzantium. She often thought of the people she had left behind, and she prayed for their safety and prosperity. The Empress eventually died in Italy, but her legacy lives on. She is remembered as the last Empress of Byzantium, and her story is told to this day. The Empress had been exiled from her beloved city of Byzantium. She had been forced to flee in the middle of the night, leaving behind her beloved palace and all of her possessions. She had been betrayed by her own people, and her beloved city was now in the hands of her enemies. The Empress was determined to make her way back to her beloved city and reclaim her throne. She had no money, no allies, and no support. But she had her faith, and she was determined to make it back to her beloved city. The Empress traveled for weeks, sometimes on foot, sometimes on horseback. She was determined to make it back to her beloved city, no matter what the cost. Finally, after weeks of travel, the Empress arrived at the gates of Byzantium. But the city was now in the hands of her enemies, and the gates were closed. The Empress was determined to get back into her beloved city, and she begged and pleaded with the guards to let her in. But the guards refused, and the Empress was forced to turn away. She had been exiled from her beloved city, and she would never be able to reclaim her throne. The Empress was heartbroken, but she was determined to make the best of her situation. She traveled to a nearby city, where she found work as a seamstress. She worked hard and saved her money, and eventually she was able to purchase a small house in the city. The Empress lived in her small house for the rest of her life, never forgetting her beloved city of Byzantium. She was determined to make the best of her situation, and she was determined to never give up hope that one day she would be able to reclaim her throne.